Tonight, inside the extortion scheme targeting people in cities across Canada. A first-hand account from the other side of the gun.
How many targets have you hit? How many homes? How many businesses?
And a community living in fear. Bell Canada slashes jobs in its biggest layoff in decades. Plus, a national summit aimed at curbing auto theft.
I got really, really angry.
Also, the top U.S. court hears a crucial legal case for Donald Trump.
I'm a believer in the Supreme Court.
And allegations of an unexpected art theft.
They get an A, a B, a C, or a D on it, but he's getting $118 in his pocket.
A teacher accused of cashing in on his students' work.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. We are continuing our investigation tonight into alleged extortion schemes terrorizing communities right across Canada. Last night, we talked to a victim, and tonight we are hearing from an alleged perpetrator who spoke to CTV's Adrian Gobriel about his motivations and the scope.
A vehicle pulls up outside of a Mississauga, Ontario car dealership. One person pulls out a gun and opens fire. A second throws what appears to be a Molotov cocktail. The individuals who've claimed responsibility for this attack say they're also behind this late-night shooting outside a Brampton, Ontario home. Hello. This week, the alleged gunman called CTV News, saying they wanted to talk. How many targets have you hit? How many homes? How many businesses?
In Canada, like around, I think 30 or 35, 40, like around that, like house, businesses.
How much money would you say you've collected so far?
Around $1.5 million.
For several weeks, CTV News has been investigating extortion attempts on businesses owned by the South Asian community across Canada. Messages are sent demanding victims hand over $1 million. Those who don't pay up have had gunmen show up at their front doors. We've spoken to one business owner who's now wearing a bulletproof vest every time he leaves his home. The violent videos are being recorded and shared on social media pages linked to known gangsters in India. What is your reason for posting recordings of you shooting up homes and businesses?
People get scared and then they give money. It's not that we're gonna ask and then they're just gonna give us like money.
The alleged gunmen who spoke to CTV News claim they're only targeting wealthy businesses. They also say they're working with known criminals in Pakistan and India, including gangster Rinda Sandhu, though Sandhu was reported dead in November of 2022. 2 months later, media reports suggest he may still be alive.
That's a lie, man. He's not dead.
While police in Ontario announced multiple arrests linked to the rise in South Asian crimes this week, the alleged gunmen who spoke with CTV News claim some of those who've been charged are low-level players who are part of a much larger international extortion racket. A city councillor tells me he knows of dozens of members from the South Asian community who've gone out to acquire their gun license over the last several months. He also claims at least one business has paid for their entire staff to get their firearm licenses to protect themselves if the authorities can't clamp down on the violence. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thank you. To some difficult news that hit close to home for us today. BCE, the parent company of Bell Media, which owns CTV News, announced massive layoffs, 4,800 jobs, including faces you're used to seeing on this program and others behind the scenes who help bring it to air. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
They are the largest layoffs in nearly 30 years. Bell announcing today it is slashing roughly 4,800 positions, about 9% of its workforce. BCE called the cuts difficult but necessary as the company deals with higher interest rates and continued inflation. Bell also blamed an increasingly unsupportive federal government and regulatory decisions. The same release goes on to tout Bell's solid Q4, with earnings of $435 million. Among the divisions sharply hit is Bell Media, which owns CTV News. National news correspondents and camera operators in several major cities have been laid off, with plans to replace them with journalists who both report and shoot their own stories. Bell plans to sell 45 of its 103 regional radio stations.
They bought them up like corporate vampires. They sucked the life out of them, laying off journalists. They have overseen the encrapification of local news by laying off journalists. And now they say, you know, it's no longer economically viable.
Live from our Maritimes News Center.
New newscasts will also be canceled in every market except Toronto. And weekend newscasts also scrapped except for in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. Several shows on CTV News Channel will be canceled, and programming at BNN Bloomberg will be streamlined. W5, CTV's long-running investigative series, will no longer be its own show, though it will serve as an investigative unit within CTV News.
In the past decade, when acquisition were allowed for those big companies to acquire a television station or radio station, it came with the promise that they would deliver on news content. And today, they are backing from that promise.
Around the world, news media face significant challenges, from declining advertising revenue to competition from online giants like Google and Meta. Bell says the news division loses about $40 million a year. And while Bell Media as a whole makes money, journalism professor Dwayne Winsek says that's not enough.
When it's not cranking out profit levels at the same time as internet access and its mobile wireless services that have much, much bigger revenues, I think, these stations' fate was sealed by the demands for growing revenues, bigger profits.
Bell says it will also close 107 The Source stores. All told, the company expects to save between $150 and $250 million a year. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
On a day the federal government, law enforcement and industry leaders teamed up to combat car thefts in Canada, we learned even the Justice Minister is not immune to it. Fueled by organized crime, stealing a vehicle takes just minutes with a big payoff. CTV's Judy Trin reports on the problem and possible solutions.
A vehicle is stolen every 5 minutes in Canada from garages, off streets, and in carjackings. One hotspot, Brampton, Ontario.
I would say the number one issue is public safety. You know, in Brampton, we've had extortion issues, auto theft skyrocketing.
Documents tabled in Parliament show even the Justice Minister's government SUV was stolen and recovered twice. It's a problem addressed at this summit, requiring politicians at all levels to work together with police and industry.
The rise over the last years has been alarming. Organized crime is becoming more brazen.
According to Interpol, Canada is one of the biggest sources for the global black market. Most are destined for the Middle East and Africa. Starting next week, the Canadian database of stolen vehicles will be linked to Interpol's network overseas.
Countries will have access to this data bank of stolen vehicles. And with our folks who are deployed overseas, we'll be able to start working with these countries and develop that intel, who's the organized crime groups behind them.
But the problem is getting increasingly violent. The thieves, often teenagers under 18, are being paid up to $2,000 for each vehicle they steal. There are demands for tougher laws to target the ringleaders, but police also want manufacturers to improve their anti-theft technology.
If your phone gets stolen or lost, it can be deactivated and it's no more than a brick. We do believe that there's technology that could be advanced to create that same scenario with a stolen motor vehicle.
Most vehicles make their way to the port of Montreal, where they're shipped overseas. There are calls for equipment to scan the containers. For now, the Canada Border Services Agency is getting an additional $28 million to intercept a crime that results in skyrocketing insurance costs.
Defrauding Canadians through our insurance industry of $1.2 billion annually is nearly doubled by the illegal vehicle sales, thereby putting billions of dollars into the hands of organized crime.
The federal government is committing to finalizing a plan within a few weeks. Auto theft has progressed way beyond a property crime. Authorities say hidden in those stolen vehicles from Canada are smuggled drugs, weapons, and even people. Omar.
All right, Judy, thanks. Car thieves are also getting more and more high tech. CTV's John Woodward on what can be done to stop them.
It was early in the morning last year when two thieves started to drill into the side of Mariam Ali's new Lexus.
I saw the light on my car go on, and right away I said, something clicked. I said, this is not happening to me.
She rushed outside her Pickering home screaming.
There was a rage that came through. You know, I got really, really angry.
They scattered, but just a couple months later, her car was targeted again.
I came back at like 4 in the afternoon to the spot where I thought my car was, and I think I cried.
The attack she caught on video is known as a CAN bus attack, says Ryan J. Paul of Durham Auto House.
They're injecting their software through those CAN wires into the car, hacking the computer of the car.
One of several attacks that treat a car like a computer. J. Paul convinced a mass-produced theft deterrent is too predictable to stop thieves, pointing to custom approaches.
Us as installers can install this device in multiple places in the vehicle, and thieves have no idea where that is.
Vehicle companies really need to be accountable.
Ali hoping her replacement vehicle doesn't get hit too. John Woodward, CTV News, Toronto.
Justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, liberal and conservative, appeared skeptical today about whether Colorado can remove Republican frontrunner Donald Trump from the ballot. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joe Malbin on the potentially landmark case.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
It was Donald Trump's conduct on January 6, 2020
We fight like hell.
that led to Colorado's decision to kick him off their primary ballot. Citing the 14th Amendment that was adopted after the Civil War that bans anyone who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal office. In oral arguments, lawyers for Colorado making their case.
For the first time in history, the attack was incited by a sitting president of the United States to disrupt the peaceful transfer of presidential power.
But there was real pushback by the justices. Both the conservative majority and liberal members seemed skeptical, concerned that enabling individual states to strike candidates off the ballot is bad for democracy.
I think that the question that you have to confront is why a single state should decide who gets to be president of the United States.
Outside the court, this lifelong Republican who helped bring the case forward says it's clear what Trump did.
You cannot serve if you committed insurrection. What is trying to throw out an election? I call it insurrection.
But of the 91 charges Trump faces, he's not been charged with that. The Republican presidential candidate out with a new fundraising appeal on this and his other legal battles.
I just finished watching the Supreme Court. It was a beautiful thing to watch in many respects. It's unfortunate that we have to go through a thing like that. I consider it to be more election interference by the Democrats.
This is the biggest election case since Bush v. Gore, which decided the 2000 U.S. election and could affect states like Maine and others who want to kick Trump off the ballot. A decision is expected soon, Omar.
All right, Joy, thank you. A special counsel into the current president, Joe Biden, will not charge him. But for him, there was also little to celebrate. The year-long investigation found that Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified documents after his time as vice president, and it raised concerns about his mental recall. The report said he did not remember when his term ended, or even within several years when his son Beau died.
How in the hell dare he raise that? I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away.
The report concluded a jury would be unlikely to convict because Biden would present himself as a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. A volcano in Iceland has blown its top for the second time this year, spraying streams of molten rock into the air and cutting off heating to tens of thousands of homes. And as CTV's Allison Bamford reports, the lava is now closing in on a power plant.
Well, I guess that's the end of Blue Lagoon for today.
An abrupt wake-up call for guests, including Canadians, staying at Iceland's famous Blue Lagoon resort.
We woke up, jumped out of bed, realized what was happening.
An early morning volcanic eruption, the third since December, shooting lava up to 80 meters in the air, forced the evacuation.
There was just this hot air that we could feel just coming from that direction, and it was quite shocking.
The eruption hit fast, closely following an intense earthquake that shook the region northeast of the fishing town Grindavik.
We only had about half-hour warning before we saw the earthquakes and until the eruption started.
Lava flowed directly into the path of thermal-based water pipes used to heat homes just south of the capital, shutting off supply to at least 20,000 households.
It could be cold tonight.
Now a dash to buy electric heaters, as restoring the pipes could take days. Local officials warn against wasting energy.
Everybody's trying to keep their houses frost-free.
Crews are scrambling to protect the region's geothermal power plant from the rapidly flowing lava. Barriers meters high are already in place.
The problem here is the lava is flowing towards west, and it flowed over the road already, leading to Grindavik.
January's eruption lasted 2 days, with lava reaching the outskirts of Grindavik. Officials say at this time there is no direct threat to the town, but lava could pose a risk to the road leading into it. Omar?
All right, Allison, thank you. And in Atlantic Canada, some people trapped at home after being snowed in are finally free.
It's perfect. It's going to allow me to get back to campus.
In Cape Breton, a small army of shovelers from a high school basketball team volunteered to help this professor, stuck for nearly a week since the historic weekend storm. Parts of the region got up to 150 centimeters and declared a state of emergency. Coming up, a drawn-out controversy.
They put their heart and their soul in the artwork.
The teacher accused of selling student artwork online. Plus, turning 104, a birthday request answered by strangers all over the world. A tragic anniversary was marked in Laval, Quebec, 1 year after a deadly bus crash that killed 2 young children under the age of 5. Daycare workers and families hugged one another and shared a moment of grief before releasing 2 balloons at a solemn ceremony.
Like I said, it was the hardest day of my life that day.
Neighbors and parents who were among the first to respond after a bus rammed into the daycare were recognized. The accused driver is facing charges of first-degree murder. At a Quebec school, a group of students were surprised to find the artwork they handed in was then posted online for a price. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
These works of art up for sale online under the heading Creepy Portraits are powerful, evocative. But those who say they are the artists, grade 7 and 8 students at this Quebec school, allege they had no idea their creations were posted and priced from $118 to $151 a pop.
You know, they put their heart and their soul in the artwork, and, you know, they get an A, a B, a C, or a D on it, but he's getting $118 in his pocket.
And the 12 to 14-year-olds allege their art teacher, the one giving them assignments, is the person selling their art without telling them on his own website. He's also selling merchandise, mugs, cell phone cases. Copyright laws provide moral rights for everyone, including children, to have their name associated with their work.
Anyone else cannot do anything or copy your work unless you give them the right to do so.
The students found out while scrolling online, curious to see their creations. Instead, they say they found theirs. The news spread through the school like wildfire and angered parents.
Is this the teacher asking for certain type of projects to be done to be able to, sell them? Is he asking for these, type of portraits to be done so it meets the market?
The school board issued a statement saying an investigation is underway, that Lester B. Pearson School Board is aware of the situation and is taking these allegations very seriously.
CTV News reached out to the teacher but received no response. The students say they want an apology and want to find out if their own art found a buyer. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Still ahead, seeing triple.
I was surprised to wake up to 3.
The Alberta farm that got a rare surprise. Olympians who win at the Paris 2024 Games will take a piece of an iconic tower home with them. Each gold, silver, and bronze medal will feature a small chunk of iron taken from the Eiffel Tower to mark 100 years since the City of Light last hosted the Games. Henry Lee Farnbrough, the last surviving original member of the iconic R&B group The Spinners, has died. The Detroit-born baritone co-founded the legendary vocal group 70 years ago, producing a string of hits like The Rubber Band Man and Could It Be I'm Falling in Love. He died in Virginia yesterday of natural causes. He was 85. A farm in Alberta, about 40 minutes outside of Edmonton, is getting a lot of attention after one of its cows gave birth to triplets.
These are when we have twins. I'm like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. This time the joke was on me.
Now, it's not unusual for cows to have twins, but triplets are said to be more like 1 in 100,000, and even more rare that all three are healthy. After the break.
Happy birthday from Maryland in North River.
I got a lot of friends.
More than 100 reasons to celebrate a remarkable milestone. When you turn 104, you deserve to get whatever birthday wish you want. A woman in Newfoundland had a modest request that was far exceeded by some thoughtful people all over the world. Here's CTV's Garrett Barry.
This all started with one Facebook post. Louise Pelly was turning 104, and she wanted 104 birthday cards.
I thought, hey, if you want to send me a card, send them. Send it. I love it.
The mail came almost right away, then more and more and more. At last count, more than 1,500 have arrived.
And I got a lot of friends.
From Alabama to Dubai to Germany. They're coming by the hundreds.
From Sydney, Nova
I
Scotia.
know them, yeah.
Do ya?
Staff at the Clarenville retirement home read them to Louise Pelly a few at a time. And they're committed to reading them all.
Did I make so many friends? Yeah. By loving them. Love others as you have loved us.
As you can tell, Louise Pelly is still boldly herself. Even at 100, just a few years ago, she entertained her fellow residents with song.
She's very easy to get along with. She loves everybody, does not have a bad word to say about nobody.
She spent her whole life in eastern Newfoundland. She owned 2 grocery stores here.
Happy birthday from Maryland in North River.
And she still lights up the room at her retirement center in Clarenville.
I can't even describe. Like, she's one of those residents that you will never ever forget. Like, she's just an extraordinary woman all around.
At 104, she says there's no secret to a long life.
Be kind to people, and they'll be kind to you.
Her proof is all around her. Garrett Barry, CTV News, Clarenville, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Happy belated birthday, Louise. That's a snapshot of this Thursday. Heather will be here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching, and good night.